Welcome, I'm Wildchild, and I'll be taking you through Heroic Brackenspore with United Anarchy. This fight is mostly about positioning and awareness, and it's combined with a DPS check in the form of a 10-minute rage timer. For this fight, we brought 2 tanks, 5 healers, 5 melee, and 11 ranged. So as you can see, we start this fight by tanking Brackenspore where he's standing. Tanks will be taking a stacking debuff called Rot that's going to force a tank swap. In Heroic, the largest concern is the Necrotic Breath, which does 30,000 damage and reduces the healing done on the tanks by 99%. So we dedicated 2 healers to the tanks and had an external defensive cooldown rotation to help keep them alive as they're tanking. During the fight, you can see there's a blue ad that pops up. That's a fungal flesh eater. That's going to spawn, and the off-tank needs to pick this up quickly and stack it on the boss for cleave. As usual, any of the ads that pop up need to die quickly, and then all DPS goes back to the boss. Fungal flesh eaters are also going to cast Decay. This does 100,000 damage to the raid, to every person in the raid. So it has to be interrupted. You can't miss this interrupt because of all of the other damage that we're taking. It will cause a raid wipe. Here you can see that Brackenspore is going to channel Infesting Spores. Infesting Spores is a raid-wide AoE damage that can only be survived through raid cooldowns or by positioning the raid on mushrooms, and we'll talk about mushrooms in just a minute. Since this spell is channeled, it's important to move Brackenspore and the entire raid to the mushrooms as soon as they appear. Timing's really key here, so that when the tanks move him, it's after the Necrotic Breath, which is that green stuff that he sprays everywhere, but before he channels the Infested Spores. If it's timed correctly, the raid is stacked on the mushroom and should be behind Brackenspore before the channel starts. If you do not time this correctly, it's very possible to hit the entire raid with Necrotic Breath or not make it to the mushroom. There are 2 types of mushrooms that your healers need to pay attention to. Both the mushrooms appear at random locations, and when they appear are going to be damaged. So they continue to take damage and then will disappear unless your healers run over and heal them up. Once a mushroom's healed to full health, it's activated and it provides a benefit to the raid. Once it's active, the mushroom's also going to take increasing damage, and it'll eventually disappear because we will not be able to heal it up. The green mushrooms we use most often and will heal the raid for 23,000 every second. These mushrooms are used to survive the infesting spores. It's important that your healers don't heal the green mushrooms to the full health until Infesting Spores is about to be channeled by Brackenspore. Once a mushroom is activated by healing it to full, it's going to take constant damage and eventually die. So if you time it correctly, you get the full beneficial heal from that green mushroom. Here we've switched to a blue mushroom. The blue mushroom increases haste by 30% for your entire raid, and it provides mana rejuvenation. So that means that your healers get all of their mana back and can spam their biggest heals really quick. The only drawback to using the blue mushroom is that you do not get that healing that the green mushroom provides. So please make sure that you have raid-wide cooldowns available if you're going to be using a blue mushroom. In our case, it took 2 cooldowns for each blue mushroom, so it was important that we had cooldowns to be able to survive the infesting spores. One other thing I want to mention here is you saw that we ran from the blue to the green mushroom just a second ago. The green mushroom was about to die. We called for lay on hands keep that in mind that you can use those types of spells to get those mushrooms up and working as quickly as possible if you need to activate them. There are two more ads that we should mention. Mind Fungus is a brown mushroom that appears usually when the raid's stacked. It reduces the cast time by 75%, so this needs to be killed by melee as quickly as they can when it appears, if it's in range. If it's not appearing where you're stacked, then range should be able to take care of it. The second ad is Spore Shooters. Spore Shooters fire Spore Shot at the raid, but we had a couple of ranged assigned to stand about 8 yards out of the stacked area when the spores appeared, and they would intercept the shots. If it hits the raid, it's going to damage everyone within 8 yards. These Spore Shooters die pretty quickly, so it's usually not too much of an issue. The ranged DPS priority we used was Mind Fungus, Spore Shooters, Fungal Flesh Eaters, and then the boss. For our melee, it was Fungus, if it appears in the melee range, Fungal Flesh Eaters, and then the boss. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about the flamethrowers. Those are the people you see running around right now with the flame shooting out all over the place. We designated 2 DPS to the flamethrowers. These guns are picked up at the beginning of the fight and used throughout to keep the area clean of the green creeping moss on the ground. The DPS would usually call out which side they're working on to keep the areas clean. A couple of things to keep in mind is that these players need to stack with the raid for heals during infesting spores, otherwise they will die to the AoE damage. It's also super important that the players do not overheat the flamethrower. Because of the long period of time that's needed for it to begin cooling down, it's most likely that your raid's going to become overwhelmed by creeping moss if they let it overheat. Instead, they should turn the flamethrower on and off as needed to clear the moss and keep it from overheating. It's best for your flamethrowers to focus on keeping the raid, mushroom, and boss area clear, so anytime a mushroom pops up, they need to locate it on the map and make sure that there's no green moss on there. Once those areas are clear, then they can work on the outer edges without overheating the gun. Thank you for watching Heroic Brackenspore with United Anarchy. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below.